All right, good morning. Haha, Anarchy says breakfast of champions. Yes, sir. And thanks for tuning in today. Good morning, Cameroon. How we holding up today?
Man, I'm holding up real good, as a matter of fact. And just before we jump in, I just want to say I hope Danny comments because apparently she can't comment on Facebook right now. Whoops.
Has she been put in the Google log?
The Google log. God, that's good. Yeah, she got completely zucked over. She apparently made a joke about how women can be catty bitches, and Facebook decided that no, you're not allowed to make that joke.
Oh, no women are catty bitches. That's not a thing. There's Danny. Good morning, sunshine. Good to see you.
Well, I'm glad she could comment somewhere.
She says, I'm in the penalty box and I feel shame.
What's funny is you haven't been zucked, and Alex hasn't been zucked, and Scotty hasn't been zucked, but Danny got zucked. That's funny to me. That is funny.
And if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't understand how it is that I've never been zucked. Like, I've probably earned a zucking or two. Because I've said some stuff on Facebook. The closest I've ever come is I was actually commenting on Alex and Danny's show one time, and I think the comment we were talking about the Wu flu, and it was early on in the pandemic, and I think I commented just the two words "fucking Chinaman." And I got nuked on that, but only on their feed. I didn't get put in Facebook jail. I didn't get my account suspended or anything like that. And I thought that was pretty special.
It's funny. I had something really similar happen, and it was on one of their streams. It was right after Herman Cain died. And I made a joke about the Chinese killing Herman Cain. And as part of the joke, I said, fucking Chinese. And Facebook gave me Facebook gave me a warning. I was like, ooh, this looks like it doesn't meet our community guidelines. And it's like, come on, guys. If you look at the whole thing in context, it's real obvious what happened here. But, hey, you know what I think it is, too, buddy? I think Danny might have suffered from the Gina Carano effect. They don't want good-looking women to have the wrong think. They gotta destroy them hard.
Yeah, you don't see a whole lot coming out of Mindy Robinson on the Twitter or the Facebook anymore.
Good Lord, no. Yeah, because she's hard at because Mindy's hot enough to light a campfire. Like you burn wet wood with her.
Jeez. Yeah.
Ooh. Okay.
Speaking of the migrant crisis, have you actually seen Rage 15?
No. Speaking of the migrant crisis, man, part of what I'm excited about is the video you found and somehow retrieved from the memory hole.
Yeah. So let me back up a little bit to I put out a video on Sunday called Biden's Mexican Leftovers. The obvious joke about the kids that are wrapped up in tinfoil like yesterday's fajitas. And little confession, that video is not as good as it could have been or should have been. Because basically I got tired of working on it and I gave up on it. And a big chunk of why I gave up, I got to a point where I said, you know what? Done is better than perfect, and I'm just tired of screwing with this one. So it's not a bad video, but I wanted so much more out of that one. But it must have taken me 4 or 5 hours to track down this one clip that I needed to have in that video. because the internet's trying to memory hole it. And it's this clip from one of the Democratic primary debates. Guys, good luck trying to find this one, but I have it. And it's important because this crisis, like the border crisis that Trump dealt with, was clearly the fault of Obama and Biden. But Trump got it under control.
Yeah, the border crisis that Trump dealt with.
Yes. The border crisis that Biden is currently not only failing miserably on, but actively attempting to suppress. Let's take a quick look at how that one started.
What I would do as president is several more things, because things have changed. I would, in fact, make sure that we immediately surge to the border. All those people are seeking asylum.
There you go. Surge all those people seeking asylum. Surge them to the border. He literally demanded it as part of his campaign platform.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, we know this because some journalism accidentally took place, and some journalists went down and started interviewing the people coming across the border and said, would you do this if Donald Trump was president? No.
Hell no.
We would not.
No.
But we're totally doing it because Joe Biden is president. I mean, it's the proof is in the pudding, as the English people say.
Yeah. And those videos are starting to get memory holed too. So if you see one of those pop up, you should download it and save it. And send them to me. You know, if y'all see the videos come up where you have criminal aliens at the border, like I don't even really like the term criminal aliens. We've talked about this several times in the past. I'll brush over it real quick right now. It is reasonable to criticize the use of the phrase undocumented worker, because the phrase undocumented worker is meant to gloss over and soften the language of illegal immigrant. But I don't even like the language. I don't even like that phrase, illegal immigrant. Immigration is a legal process. It is a process that is undertaken within the bounds of the law. When you cross a border illegally, okay, Cameron, you're killing me, brother. When you cross a border illegally, you're not immigrating illegally. You're committing a war crime. You are a hostile foreign invader. And if you do not have the active support of your foreign government, and I'll touch on that in just a second. If you do not have the active support of your foreign government, then you are a rogue agent of a hostile foreign entity committing a war crime against a sovereign nation. Illegal immigrant is a misnomer. The correct term is hostile foreign invader. Now, that language is important because the correct answer to a border crisis is a military defense. What we have at our border are not criminals. They're enemy combatants. We could have saved a lot of damn money by, instead of building a wall, installing a minefield. And before you get all up in arms, let me explain you something about how a minefield works. A combat engineer does not place minefields because they hope that the enemy stumbles into them and gets blown up. No. Even in active war zones, a minefield is placed and clearly marked not to catch the enemy, but to deter the enemy. You put a minefield where you don't want them to go, so that the enemy has to go where you want them to go. You use things like minefields to control their path of movement.
Yeah, it's like how poisonous insects and reptiles are brightly colored. They're basically saying, "Don't fuck with me; it'll hurt."
Yep. So, yeah, we could have saved ourselves a fortune by simply installing minefields instead of the wall. Because, yeah, here's the other thing about a minefield. If you label it very clearly, you don't really need to put mines in it.
Yeah, the majority of a minefield
you can just put up the signs. You can just put up the signs, and people will be like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to believe you."
Yeah, there's a mine every 4 meters. But where does the 4 meters begin and end? Aha!
Aha!
You have, in fact, cottoned on to the point.
So let's take a look at kind of the rest of what's going on here. Ted Cruz has been a little more active with all of this than anybody else, and it makes sense. He's in Texas. I mean, he's the Texas guy. And the first thing I want to do, so let's just go ahead and say the thing, and then take a look at this piece of data here. So Cruz did a little Vice style, like crocodile hunter hiding in the bushes video that he released on Twitter. You know, kind of, hey, look what I can see, and it's, you know, he's at the Rio Grande River, looking at criminal aliens crossing into the U.S. illegally, you know, committing their war crime. And the video's just kind of, it's just him kind of, talk to a documentary camera. And there are no real revelations in the video. However, go and search for Ted Cruz's video on the interwebs, and let me show you what you'll find. And this is DuckDuckGo, right? I'm using DuckDuckGo to search for this, and the point of that is DuckDuckGo is less censorious than Google, and still what comes up, and this makes another point, but still what comes up, the top 3 headlines: Republican Senator Ted Cruz mocked for documentary-style trip to U.S.-Mexico border. Ted Cruz trolled for making wildlife-like documentary on U.S.-Mexico border. Is it not Cancun? Twitter asks after Ted Cruz posts documentary-style trip to U.S. border. Okay, and as you can see, as I scroll down this, it's the same thing. Senator mocked for documentary-style video. Trolled for making wildlife documentary. Is it not Cancun? Again, Ted Cruz versus Rio Grande at Texas border sparks memes. Republican senator mocked for, and it goes on and on and on, right? And that's looking at it on DuckDuckGo, which is, again, less censorious than Google. So what that tells me is not only, it's not just, the problem is not just that Google is censorious and suppresses conservative points of view, but the left-wing agitators are more aggressive at putting out the message. They're more effective at putting out the message. And largely they're more effective because they have a much wider platform to spread that message over, right? This, I mean, you saw how close those all those headlines were, and several of you watching now are aware of a project that we at the Brushfire Mind are working on currently. We'll be filming on later this week. And I'll just tease it a little bit. It's called The Wild Man. And I'm not going to go into a lot of what it is, but part of the narrative that we're going to chew on with that is the narrative coordination of the left-wing media. All those headlines were pretty close to the same headline, right? It reads like it's very clear that some central organization, probably either the DNC itself or what's Soros's organization called? I forget off the top of my head, but one of these
the
big
Empire.
No, but that was solid. But one of these big Democrat think tank type organizations clearly puts out a memo, and it's like, this is the narrative. These are the words that you will say. This is the story that you're going to tell. And that gets distribution across all of the mainstream press, and then they just regurgitate it, right?
Do you remember that? Do you remember that supercut that got released a few years ago? That was all these different news stations, all making quite literally almost exactly identical statements about truth and reporting.
Yes, and amusingly, the one that I remember the exact one you were talking about. It was the one where all of the news stations involved in the supercut were subsidiaries or kind of, network franchises of Sinclair Broadcasting, and it got panned and criticized heavily for that coordination because the message that they put out was essentially against the normal mainstream media. They weren't going full in the tank for the Donald, but they were clearly a more conservative series of news outlets. And that's worth note because similar montages, similar supercuts have been done on the narrative coming from all your CNNs, Guardians, MSNBCs, CCPNN, all those. And those supercuts just don't get the play. They don't get the hate clicking that the Sinclair Media one did.
Yeah, and it was actually Rush Limbaugh, a staple of his show for years, was to have big montages of pundits and anchors all saying almost the exact same thing. And I learned the definition of the word gravitas from Rush Limbaugh's show, from
Hang on,
he did.
You broke up your shitty cell phone connection. Say that one more time. You learned the definition of what?
I learned the definition of the word from Rush Limbaugh's show from a supercut.
That's amazing.
Different.
You broke up again.
Said the same thing.
What word?
Gravitas.
There it is. Oh, brother, I cannot wait for you to go back and watch this episode and hear what happened, because literally your cell phone signal broke up as you began to say that word both times. Yeah, Steve's already saying he's being suppressed. So anyway, you were saying, Cameron.
Look, that was a feature of Rush Limbaugh's show, that this is something that he observed decades ago, was that there is clearly some type of coordination. And I just remember the first time it really striking me as hard as it did was somewhere like 22 years ago, listening to Rush Limbaugh's show, and every single pundit said the exact same thing, that George Bush picked Dick Cheney as VP for the Gravitas.
Right.
And it's like, oh, wow. All smart people all somehow independently reached the exact same conclusion. I'm sure that's not suspicious at all.
Right.
And it's funny, they've got to make fun of Ted Cruz, because the one thing you can't do is beat Ted Cruz in an actual debate. So they've got to poison the well. They just have to. Because Ted is sharp, and he has video evidence.
He's
so
super sharp, dude. You could cut sharp cheddar with that nose.
Yeah. And according to Trump, you could make an interesting cut of the Zapruder film too. So. But anyhow, no, they've got to poison the well, because of all the videos that have come out of that whole documentary thing that he made, the one that I found the most fascinating was the one that he dropped on his Twitter feed a few days ago, where the woman is like literally stepping in front of his camera and saying, "We need to give these people dignity and respect. Please give these people dignity and respect." Like, and that one infuriated me. I hate people like that. I mean, like,
This is the woman he's
passion.
talking about, guys. Please give
Oh,
dignity
shut
to the people. Please respect the people, the rules. The staffer told Cruz. Your policies are unfortunately trying to hide them. I understand that you were instructed, Cruz said. I respect them. I want to fix this situation. Right. So here's the video that he shared on the Twitter.
Your advisor, you were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any.
Please respect.
Respect.
Oh.
Please respect. Please give dignity to the people. Please give dignity to the people.
So you work for the commissioner, your senior advisor. You were hired 2 weeks ago, and you're instructed to ask us to not have any pictures taken here.
Please respect the people,
because the
the
political
rules.
leadership at DHS does not want the American people to know it.
Please respect the rules,
You keep
sir.
standing in front of the pictures, so
Please
you don't want the
respect the
pictures
rules.
taken. The rules are arbitrary, and
Please
they're
respect
designed
the
to
rules
keep
and
the
give
American
the people
in the dark.
dignity and respect. That's all we ask.
Well, no,
dignity
it's
and
not.
respect.
You're asking, is this
Please-
dignity and respect? Look at
Please
these people.
give
There's
dignity
a
and
pandemic.
respect to the people.
Let me ask
ask
you, there's a pandemic.
I respectfully ask you, sir.
There is a pandemic. Is
Full-hearted,
this respecting the rights of these
full-heartedly,
kids?
I ask you. Please
Are you
respect
respecting the
people.
rights of these
This
kids?
is not a zoo, sir. Please don't treat the people.
You're right, and this is a
As such.
dangerous place.
Please don't treat the
And
people
your
like
policies,
this. That's all I ask
unfortunately,
for you,
are
sir.
trying to hide them. I understand
That's
you
all
were
I ask
instructed
you.
when 18
I ask
senators
you
came
to
down
please
here.
respect the people, give them dignity
I
and
respect them, and I want to fix this situation.
We all want to
and
fix
the
this, sir. We
administration.
don't-
You see, okay, there's a couple things going on here. So she says, this is not a zoo. You're right. It's not a zoo. It looks more like the crisper in my refrigerator full of leftovers wrapped in tinfoil. And, please treat these people with dignity. You've wrapped them in tinfoil and crammed them in a plastic case like your leftovers. How is that dignity? And she keeps getting in front of his camera. Let's be very clear about something. The First Amendment protects the right of the press. The Supreme Court has found that includes filming. Right? Now, I'm not a lawyer. Ted Cruz is a lawyer. I don't know what the property designation is on these detention facilities, but just to be clear, even the sheriff's department, the police station, are at least the front entrances of those buildings are public areas. So if anywhere that you're allowed to be, anywhere that you are allowed to be in public, you are allowed under the law. Let me rephrase that. Your right is protected by the law to take pictures and video of anything you can see from any place you are allowed to be. So let me clarify that just a little bit. This comes from Supreme Court decisions. Let's say there are sensitive personal documents that are visible from a public area and you film or photograph those. Under the law, it is not your responsibility to safeguard someone else's privacy. You have a right to privacy, but you have a responsibility to safeguard your own privacy. And when it comes to the question of what ends up on film or in photos in public, in the view of the public, you do not have a reasonable expectation to privacy in view of the public. Right? This goes for recording conversations as well. We've talked a bit about the difference between a one-party and a two-party consent state. Guess what? Those rules get muddy if you're having, say I am not a party to a conversation and I use one of my very nice directional microphones to record a conversation between two people, say, in the food court at a mall, then the question of party consent gets real muddy against the question of whether or not you had a reasonable expectation to privacy. Because at that point, you're arguing that I shouldn't be allowed to hear what you're saying, even if I'm not actively trying to. Right? And I say at that point it gets muddy because I don't want to make an exact claim, but there is definitely a bright line difference between whether or not party A and party B, who are in separate private offices having a conversation on the phone, and one of them records the conversation without telling the other, versus a third party who's not actually a party to that conversation somehow makes a clandestine recording of that conversation, right? That's not allowed in a one-party or a two-party consent state, because neither party to the conversation is actually consenting to the recording. But you get out in public and the rules change dramatically. What this woman is doing right here, I cannot say for certain because, again, I don't know what the official designation of the location where this footage is being taken is, but I suspect that Ted Cruz does know what the rules are on that and is intentionally abusing the situation. No, that's not correct. Abusing it is not the correct word, but he's leveraging his absolute rights, and probably having made some very careful decisions beforehand based on the legal ramifications of this activity. So there's a good chance that what this woman is doing right now is, as a representative who is employed by the government, she is actively violating the natural rights of a citizen.
Well, not only that, but just for starters, like, good grief, you're going to stop a senator from filming something. Okay. Now, I realize our elected officials work for us. We don't work for them. But at the same time, we do imbue them with certain powers. And again, like you say, Ted Cruz, he is a lawyer. He does know what he can and cannot exploit or leverage. And so, I mean, this woman, you'd hope she's at least smart enough to be internally shitting her pants. Like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? But then as you really start to peel these layers back, remember, this is something that Jen Psaki, Miss Circleback, she was asked about this. And it was like, oh, well, we'll make a tape available for you guys as soon as possible. And in a world where you could literally shoot something on your iPhone, edit it on your iPhone, and publish it to YouTube in a matter of minutes. Now, what, we'll make a tape available? Like, what, is this the 80s? And they've got to go back and they've got to pull the film and they've got to make copies of the film and distribute it? No, it's all digital. They could literally have given it to them that day. But of course, they wanted it to be very heavily censored because they can't have Joe Biden be guilty of the thing that they accused Donald Trump of. And then there's the broader point. We really want to treat these people with dignity? I agree. Let's treat them with dignity. And just tell them, don't come here. It will not end well for you. The border's closed. So sorry, but not sorry. Bye, Felicia. That's
my
how
wife
you treat
hates
them
that
with.
joke.
And has she ever seen Friday?
Yeah.
Oh well, at least she knows where the joke comes from.
Yeah. So let me roll back up the comments a little bit. I wanted to address this, but I wanted to finish the point we were on. Dave Bowen pointed out, I don't understand why he didn't just raise the phone up over her head. She was 5'0". That's honestly, Dave, that's easy. We see what he's trying to film there. We see the people wrapped in tinfoil like yesterday's leftover Mexicans. So that's done. But what's happening in this video clip, an agent of the Biden administration, an agent of the U.S. federal government, is actively engaged in censoring and directly violating the freedom of the press, which is guaranteed by the First Amendment. And just to remind everybody, the Bill of Rights does not confer to you rights. The Bill of Rights lists rights that you have in the absence of a government and says that the government cannot take those rights away. You have your rights with or without the organized criminal gang that we refer to as the federal government. What the document does is it says, thou shalt not impede. You shall not pass.
Yeah, just to kind of tag that, I think you're exactly right. He filmed the most powerful thing he could film.
Yes.
Which was her continuing to obstruct his view. And really, how stupid is she? We're like, after the second or third time he managed to catch a glimpse of all the peas in the pod, just give it up, lady. Just give it up. You've lost.
Part of what's happening here is she's emboldened by the mask that she's wearing. She gets to enjoy, while she's clearly committing a crime, right? A very serious crime, infringement of individual civil liberties. She is an agent of the government committing an active crime, having that crime filmed by the witness and the victim simultaneously, and she is emboldened by the veneer of anonymity afforded to her by that mask.
Right. Plus, I think she's even more so emboldened by, this is one of those, the left believes they've always got the moral high ground things.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, it's what they're not right, but they believe it.
Correct. But hey, brother, I think that's about my show for today.
Oh, your show. Gotcha.
You ready to put a pin in it? I know you've got to get to work.
Hey, so just real quick, since we're talking about Ted Cruz, and this could just be a nice little humorous thing to end on. Please tell me you've seen the video where a reporter tries to chastise him for wearing a mask, and he
and he just shuts her down. Like, no, you're way over there, and we have CDC guidelines. I'm speaking.
And the reporter actually tried to say, well, it would make us feel better. Oh, no. Facts don't care about your feelings, and Ted Cruz is about to... Apparently, a lot of his colleagues hate him because he's kind of arrogant, and when he's right, he knows he's right, and he rams it down your throat.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Kind of like he did to that reporter. Gee, I wonder why you'd be okay with that, buddy.
I can't imagine.
But yeah, there's that. I do have to go to work.
All right, brother, you be safe out there, and the rest of you guys, y'all be safe out there. Have a wonderful day, and we will see you tomorrow.